up the dive. Feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's so I remember right. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning and welcome to Monsters on the Edge. I am your host, Barnaby Jones, here on the Untold Radio Network. We are live in studio today, and happy Monday to Lee Warner and the Woodbuggers, or the Woodboogers. Lee doesn't know how to spell. Happy Monday, Lee. We are going to be out this weekend, guys. If you're interested in the Caps team, we are going to be at UFO Days in Elmwood, Wisconsin on Saturday, July 26th. There is a whole bunch of stuff going on this weekend. I'm not going to read it all to you, but you can head on over to UFO Days on Facebook and check it out. But just some of the stuff, guys. We have The Infinite Rabbit Hole is doing a presentation, as well as myself, Darkwoods Paranormal, and all kinds of stuff throughout the day. Mars Attacks family movie night at 7 p.m. on Saturday. There is going to be live music, a pancake breakfast, and all kinds of stuff. The event kicks off on Thursday for UFO Kids Day and food tent, as well as Friday, all kinds of activities, Saturday and Sunday as well, fireworks and live music, food, all kinds of stuff, all weekend in Elmwood, Wisconsin. And guys, coming up in September, we are going to be at SilCon in Gaze, Illinois, September 19th and 20th. The Van Meter Visitor Festival, Saturday, September 27th in Van Meter, Iowa. And the Neenah Public Library for a paranormal presentation, followed by a paranormal investigation of the Neenah Public Library. Going to be a great time. Then next year we head to Cape Girardeau, Missouri for CapCon Missouri, April 17th through the 19th, and CapCon Wisconsin in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, May 8th and 9th and 10th. There we go. That's right. Who does not like a food tent? Absolutely. And pancakes. Who doesn't love pancakes? All right, guys. Without a further ado, we are live. So let's get to our guest here today. All right, guys, my guest is Rick Reles. He is a Bigfoot investigator currently living in Western North Carolina. Rick is a retired from 37 years of a professional business life where he traveled the world frequently. In 2010, while driving across northern Wisconsin with another business associate, they saw a Sasquatch cross the road ahead of their vehicle. This began his interest and research journey into the world of Bigfoot. As a Bigfoot BFRO investigator, he has attended and helped lead dozens of expeditions. He speaks at conferences frequently, has been a guest on dozens of podcasts on the subject of Bigfoot and Cryptids, and is a recording artist with the song Woodbooger Walk out on Spotify. He consulted for the show Finding Bigfoot, which aired 3 episodes involving encounters which he had. And he has a book, The Field Guide to Bigfoot Stick Structures, that is in its 4th edition. He is also a partner in I Know Squatch, a Wisconsin LLC that sells leading-edge Sasquatch-related merchandise. I Know Squatch has an Etsy store, which is in the show notes for those of you interested, and is also on Instagram and Facebook, and will be selling merchandise at numerous events all over the United States. So, without any further ado, please welcome to the show, Rick Reles. Rick, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Barnaby. Glad to be on and catch up with you and talk about things Wisconsin and beyond.
Oh, absolutely. I have gotten, I don't know if you know, but I think I've met you a couple times at CryptidCon.
Yep. Yes, we have. Yeah, I've ended at that a number of times over the past 4 years, 3-4 years. It's always been a good show.
Oh yeah. I know I've seen you there. I know I've seen I Know Squatch at several other events and stuff that we've been at, but I know I've met you a couple times there. So
cool. Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, you know, I am a Wisconsinite, as we spoke earlier, and it's kind of interesting because I didn't know I Know Squatch was from Wisconsin, for one, and I didn't know that you were originally from Wisconsin.
Go ahead, just cycle that on me there.
I didn't know that you originally were from Wisconsin. And I didn't know I Know Squatch was from Wisconsin as well.
Yeah, no, I've actually lived in a number of different states over my professional career, but I Know Squatch is an LLC based out of Wisconsin. I have a partner. His name is Hans Wolbier, and he's actually got a place up around Eagle River, but he's got another place. He was in Monroe. He's down in that area. But I met him years ago on an expedition up in UP of Michigan, and we got talking. We're on numerous expeditions in Iowa, Wisconsin, etc., and kind of had the similar view that we thought we wanted to create a business and illustrate. He's a professional illustrator. Does a great job on how people actually see Bigfoot or report seeing Bigfoot, and so we had depicted it that way. So we have it peeking around a tree. Actually, I have a shirt on right now. I might as well give a plug. It's got one you could see running, a strider. So, we try and we trademark and own the word whoop, but we have 5 trademarks and depictions of how people will report back. And being a BFRO investigator, I've talked to lots and lots of folks on their encounters. And quite often a hunter will say it, they see it. It's, peeking around a tree, kind of like looking at them. So that's a common one. People will see it striding or running. Think of Patty, the Patterson Gimlin thing. And, when the first one I saw, we were talking before we got to the Sacramento area, and it was striding, running across the road. And I was with a business associate. We saw the thing, just towards dusk, late November day, and it came across the oncoming lanes. There was nobody in the road, crossed the median, went across front of us, and kind of strided and went over a fence. I went back and measured a fence. It was like over 5 feet high, but it went over like a hurdler. So people commonly will see it striding or running. That's why we call it that.
Very interesting. I want to talk all about your experiences and stuff, but before we get to that, I want to talk about your book and a little bit about that as well. So this is The Field Guide to Stick Structures. So let me ask you this. How much of this was photographed and stuff here in Wisconsin?
There's a number in there. I've got well over 1,000 images. I was in Tennessee National Forest in Michigan a week ago with a number of folks doing some Bigfooting, and found one area, which is always interesting about stick structures. They're not just spread out across the forest randomly. You'll come to a section or an area, it looks like they've been constructed or built. So we found one area there, so I probably picked up another couple dozen pictures, but there were some very good ones in there. They will fall into categories, and that's what the book explores. Doesn't try to explain them all. It tries to categorize them and then ask questions about them and maybe speculate, what they are all about. But it is something that in areas where Bigfoots have been sighted, these structures do get built. And I don't care if you're in the Pacific Northwest or down in Florida, they will follow a lot of the same structure types. You'll see the same types quite often.
Very cool. And you got the links, or we got the links in the show notes here for that as well. It's on the I Know Squatch Etsy site, and you can check that out in the show notes if you guys are interested in grabbing a copy of the book. Yep. Very cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about.
We have it at shows too, and I'll show you real quick. Let me show you real quick. If they get in, they're going to see not just pictures, schematics. They're going to see actual pictures and scaled pictures of people around these things, and I've got them from lots of other people who have sent them to me too, and they'll pick out some of the nuances in them, like they're, I've got pointing the focal point. A lot of these things look like they're engineered. Here's some depictions of the X's or the asterisk types. I think one of the most interesting ones that I have in here is this one I got from Scott Carpenter. He may rest in peace, but you can clearly see the stress and how that's been bent over. But the book categorizes them. It's a field guide, so you can put it in your backpack when you go out in the woods, and that's kind of what it was made for. So, and people can go to I Know Squatch. We're on all the right places people get their social media, and we do have an Etsy store. So thank you. And we do all original artwork, stickers, challenge coins, hats, shirts, all sorts of stuff. So.
Very cool. Yeah, like I said, I've seen you guys lots at the conventions and stuff. So a lot of cool stuff. So.
Yep. Cool. Yep.
So
sure.
I love to ask my guests, like, we kind of have to speculate on a lot of the different things that we research and know and stuff like that. But when you're talking about the stick structures now, what is it that you think about these? What have you kind of discovered? Do you think you have like an idea of what certain ones mean? Have you found any correlation to, water sources, people, or anything like that?
Yeah, fair questions. First off, I think there's some similarity between them and Native American symbology. So, because I've done some research into that. For instance, the easiest one is the X. And the book will always talks about things to make sure that they're not. Snow load, you get a lot of snow in Wisconsin, you can bend trees over. You can get a downforce and a thunderstorm and parts that will create havoc, especially with like pine trees that have a small root ball and just fall right over. So you got to dismiss things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you get into a specific area and they have all of a sudden these things have been constructed and you can see they will fall into categories like the X, the asterisk, the upside down check mark. Shows up a lot. There's hoops where they'll bend over a sapling, strip off all the side branches, sometimes the bark, and then they will stick in the ground the skinnier end and hold it down with a log or with a rock. We find that quite often too. So they do fall into similarities geometrically. But I always try to dismiss geotropism, hydrotropism, anything that could affect these things in their natural growth environment. But when you can't explain them and you see them get constructed, especially if you're in an area you're researching, watching this over time, it's uncanny. They will follow, I think, a lot of the symbols that Native Americans have. The X means something in that. Like in Cherokee, it means friend. An asterisk has more of a sun meaning, and that often means a male presence or a presence in the area. So could be these things are, well, they're not for us, but they may be them communicating with each other. It could be road signs. It could be address markers. It could be a lot of different things. I will say the upside down check mark that you'll see sometimes. I've seen those in parallel 1, 2, 3 up on a lot of times up on a high area above a trail or where a trail goes into the woods. They're like a marker. And I think my encounters have been there. A sentry Sasquatch will be where those are, watching out, watching over the trail, or watching humans, if you will. So, and I do believe, there's never one Sasquatch. They're always in groups. They have social order. They're not solitary creatures. And they have different, in their sociology, they have different roles quite often. And so a sentry is often around that type that you'll see up there. I also have in the book, I started to get into this because I have a couple of habituation sites I deal with routinely. What I mean by that is they have Sasquatch on their property adjacent, and they have routine interaction, whether it's gifting or exchange, communication. I have right now actually a third site, it's a construction site, but I have multiple locations I talk to almost daily about this stuff. But one of the things you'll find is they will communicate with glyphs on the ground. So you'll see these where they'll build these things on the ground, and they fall into categories too, which is fascinating. Being on expeditions out in the woods, you'll see those things outside your tent. If you're out researching and you're in the woods, have some encounters, wake up next morning, think you hear something around, and there's like, sometimes they will leave these so on the ground. So Bigfoot are using, they're using what they have in the woods. It's some type of forest language, and they're using the available resources, and that's sticks, stones quite often, and they're making symbols. And I'm comfortable with that. I don't have to try and explain it all, but the book doesn't try to explain it all. It says, I think I have 7 categories, and here's a number of things that show up consistently with these. Same with the on the ground glyph type things that they build. So, that's what it's all about, really. And like I said, 4th edition, I've been fortunate enough people take interest in it and buy them at the shows. I autographed, they'll take them out in the woods. And then they also, I have in the back where they can get a hold of me, and they will send me on the back. Often I get pictures of these things sent, and they want me to discuss. So, it's an area of research. We're all citizen scientists in this, if you will. And, it's an area of research probably underserved. I like it. I try to take some interest in it and look for similarities.
Absolutely. We had a private habituation property in Upper Michigan, and
Okay.
I mapped all of the stick structures that we could find on that property. And like you said, they do kind of tend to be in confined areas, right? So it's very interesting when you look at the entire woods. There's natural stick falls and stuff that happen, but all of these weirder, what you would consider like constructed things, are only in specific areas.
Right.
So one of the things that we noticed on that property, and I've tried to look at other properties and they don't follow this, so I always like to see anybody that's worked with these if you've had this encounter. But when you're walking down game trails and you come to like the teepee style ones, on this specific property, we mapped each of the sticks in that structure, and they seem to coincide with a group with a cross section or an intersection of a bunch of game trails.
Interesting.
So one of the sticks represented one of the game trail shoot-offs from that area. And we found a large X sometimes right before, if you're going down the main large game trail, there'd be a large X, and then there'd be one of these teepees like right in the middle of the trail.
Wow.
And then if you followed off these sticks, we actually were able to lead from one of the stick structures down a trail to another one at another like crossroads and stuff. But again, it only was on this one property. We tried it on other properties where we found these same stick structures, and it didn't map out. So I'm curious if you've ever looked at the correlation there.
Yeah, I have. I think, again, these things, I think they're built for each other, not for us. There could be sign indicators, as you say. They could be directional indicators. One of the ones I talk about in the book is where a tree will, bifurcate going up, and you'll see these long, they look like walking sticks. They're stripped on the side. You can find 4 of them, 5 of them remotely in the woods leaning in there. To me, that seems to be, it's an indicator for others. Hey, there's maybe Bigfoot or nomadic or walking through, but hey, there's 4 of us or 5 of us in this area. But you can't explain it with, you're on a trail, it's not frequented, and it's 100 feet off the trail, and there's a tree that bifurcates, and here's 5 of these things that are 10 feet long, all stripped of everything on the side, broken off, different side, leaning symmetrically right in the bifurcation of the tree. And nature's not going to do that. Nature's not going to strip them and pile them up like that. And So there is some uniformity. There's some engineering that goes on with these. A lot of them look like it takes multiple Bigfoots to build them.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, also, I would think what you're saying is true. That directionally could be indicators. They're communicating with each other, and they do put them down, up, and take them down. I want to address a little more of that. Was in a Finding Bigfoot show. I was on an expedition. I want to go back to 2016 or so, and I can't tell you the exact location. It's north of Eagle River, though. But we were up there, and in the show, there were two groups. I led one group, and there was another group that was led by another investigator who was down in the southwestern part of Wisconsin. But we had two groups, and long story short, they radioed back to us after we had howls in between, about a half mile apart. But they had stepped off a trail with their ropes on to look at stick structures that they all of a sudden saw in an area. They hadn't seen any all night, and all of a sudden, here's this area. It was half a dozen of them step off the trail.
Having some issues with lag here, it looks like. I don't know. Froze up. We are live, guys. So if hopefully the lag clears up here. But if you guys have any questions throughout the show, throw them in the comments section, and we will get to them as soon as possible. Rick has frozen. And he has left. So we are talking to Rick Reles. He should be Rick Reles, I'm sorry. And he should be back here in just a second. We're talking about his book, The Field Guide to Bigfoot Stick Structures. You can get it at I Know Squatch, all one word, on Etsy and Facebook. You can go check that out there. The link is in the show notes. So we're kind of trying to chat about Bigfoot in Wisconsin and some of the stick structures and that we find. How is everybody else doing today? Looks like we have some stuff going on over here. Hello from East Tennessee. Hello. Thank you for tuning in today. And Lee as well. So hopefully Rick pops back in here in just a second. He was having some issues with lag and stuff earlier as well when we were chatting. So he should be right back. We'll wait. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, guys, while we're waiting for him to come back, if you guys have not checked out the brand new documentary from Wisconsin Caps, it is all about Bigfoot in Wisconsin and all of our research and stuff as well. It is available on Patreon and Paraflix. Check out right now. There you go.
Right here in the road, and it was right on the line, standing right there.
Whatever it was breaking trees, breaking branches, and I've never heard that before.
And from the basement door, I was like, Louie, I'm pretty sure there's a footprint out here.
And that's when the rocks started coming out of this tree line.
All I seen was hair. And it was like arched over right here.
And then out of nowhere we hear this loud, like earth-shaking grunt.
It rolled its shoulder and grabbed the ground and pulled itself towards my vehicle.
And I heard a plunk, and I come over here, and that squash was laying about right there in the middle of my garden, you know.
How do you walk in that in bare feet at 30-degree temperature?
Did you see that?
What was that? I saw something dark in the light from the right to the left.
It was big.
Could be the little Bigfoot.
Well, unfortunately, Rick is still not back. Let's see. Squatchin' Cowboy says, in my opinion, why would a creature like Bigfoot that wants to remain hidden mark its territory by marking an X? If I know that Bigfoot was doing that in the first place, or that would be the first place I would go. Very, very true. A lot of the times, these structures are more off trail than that. So unless you're a hunter or off in the woods, they're not necessarily right up by the trailheads or right on the paths, at least that we've found. In fact, when we do find things like that, there's a lot of bushcraft and other things that are done by, Boy Scouts or outdoors people and stuff that leave them. It's very common as well for the Native Americans and hikers and stuff to leave trail markers. Deer hunters do it to follow game trails back out to their deer stands and places like that as well. So when we're out in the woods and on public property and stuff like that, we tend to throw out a lot of stick structures and stuff that are right on the trailheads or on the trailways where people have very easy access to them. And it's more of the deeper woods and stuff, and on the private properties, like the property that I was talking about in Upper Michigan, we were the only people that had access to that aside from the property owners, and they were deer and bear hunters, and they would spend a lot of time out on the woods. And I just got an email. I'm checking if that's from Rick. See if he can't pop back in. Yep. Okay. So he said the page is not responding. Hang on a sec. Please enjoy this brief message, and we'll be right back.
Show your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our shows, knowledgeable hosts, and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
There we go. Welcome back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
I was just replying to your email, and I'm like, we'll be right back after this message.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what happened. So anyway, it just wouldn't respond, so I clicked out and got back in somehow. So,
no problem.
Yeah, it could be all thunderstorms out there in the world. I don't know. Maybe it's something like that. Anyway,
Wi-Fi is just a weird, fickle thing. So yeah.
I know. No, the point I was trying to make, just to finish the story, I think I left off in that we had a group at night, red lights on, looking at stick structures, and we had a juvenile, like 4 or 5 foot small black Bigfoot, run through the group, crossed the trail and down like a hill, a ravine. So they called out to us in walkie-talkie. We caught up with them, and I was very interested in where it went. And it went down a hill through the forest to a swamp. It was steep. Here's the interesting thing. So I grabbed a high beam flashlight. I had some folks hold onto my shoes and ankles. I leaned down the hill and I lit it up, right down the hill. And there were several hoops built, really like wickets in croquet, one after another, X number of feet apart, let's say, 40, 50 feet apart, right down that hill into the swamp. That thing ran down through those like guideposts to get to that swamp. So that aligns with what you were saying.
Yeah, a little bit. That's interesting. That's the first time I've heard of running through the hoops. That's kind of
It might have been, if it was juvie, maybe the parents constructed it as a way to get back home. It's a safe route or something,
Yeah, absolutely.
Fascinating.
The adults have more of a understanding, knowing how to get through the woods, but the juveniles don't. So it's kind of
right.
If you get lost, follow these all the way back. And
yeah, it was cool. But yeah, no, I've had a lot of good expeditions in Wisconsin. I can't tell you the location exactly, but some of the places where we were north up there around Blueberry Lake area, Franks Lake, some of those areas, I've always had some activity. I think there's another one, Muskellunge Lake. But you get up and out those areas around there, a lot of woods, a lot of blueberries, a lot of lakes they can get in and around it. We've had some good activity around there.
Have you ever gotten to the Enterprise area?
Tell me what it's near.
Rhinelander.
I have gotten up around there. Was in some folks that I've been up at the UP a number of times.
Mm-hmm.
And up in areas around there, Schoolcraft County, up around there. Rhinelander area, I've gotten into some areas around. You get some deep woods around there too, just south and southeast of there too. There's some great forested areas. And yes, I have gotten in a few of those. There's reports around there. And if you go south towards Green Bay, there's a county, I think is it Oconto County?
Up there, yeah. Kind of in that area. I don't know if it's by Rhinelander, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's south of there, but I had more. I spent 5 years or so investigating reports in Wisconsin. I moved to Tennessee and then over to North Carolina. But I think it was Oconto County. That county had more reports than any other county in the state, and I couldn't figure it out. And I kept doing a lot of corollary analysis. And guess what? There's more springs and waterfalls into tributaries and things, waterways in that county than any place in the state. And so it gets back to me, wherever there's a lot of water, these things need to subsist, and they can hide forest. To me, that always is an indicator where they are.
Interesting. Yeah, we had a lot of interaction up in Rhinelander, and it kind of stopped at a certain point, and we were told that they were over in Enterprise, but we never got over there to do any research in there. So I was just kind of curious if you'd ever had any interactions in that area. But
I had reports up in that area for sure. There's a park area up there. I think the BFRO and some other groups have done some expeditions on. I scouted it years ago, and we were going to do them, but I think some groups have since. I'm trying to think of the name. I was just talking to somebody about this too. I got to look at a map, but it's near Rhineland. It's not too far from up in that area.
Interesting. I will have to message you off air and share some stuff with you as well. So
I'd love to. I'd love to hear about that.
Awesome. Myron would like to know, can you show a picture in your book of a asterisk structure?
Yes, I can. I can do that. And I had some good areas in Wisconsin that had these prevalently too. The area down near the southern kettle unit, there's an area near there's a, I'm trying to think of the name. It has a monks. There was a group of monks and everything that were in there. I'm trying to think of the name right now. It's a holy area and everything. There's trails around. The Ice Age Trail goes around there, and you follow the Ice Age Trail in Wisconsin. Things, but that area had a lot of stick structures, and so I'll show you a couple. Here's a guy who's a friend of mine. I did some research in that area, but let's see if I get this centered. But here are some good ones. You can see him standing there, behind the one big one. He had some gifting going on there, and then you can see this one over here. So the asterisks typically will have a focal point in the middle, but there's symmetry always. I have one in the back that's a good one too, and I have a friend of mine. She's standing there. I want your folks that are watching to see the symmetry, and the members of this, the cross members, they're broken and engineered and stuck in there, and you might have a big supporting beam in there too. These things can be massive in size. I'll show you another really good one. There's a lot of times there's a member in the center that is just kind of toggling back and forth. It's like pixie sticks or pickup sticks. They put the things in there, and they will just stay stationary. I always try to get some scale and get somebody into it, if you will, so you can see. But they can get very, very large in a hurry. These things, and they can be in the ground too. Here's a good one that's right in the ground. So I'll put that right there. That was actually up in the UP. They'll build them, and they'll be flat on the ground sometimes too. But there's symmetry also. So an asterisk will have more than 2 members to it. It's got a minimum of 3. It can be 4, 5, 6 members, but there's a focal point in the middle, and they're asterisk and an asterisk. Had a real good one behind a remote Baptist church in North Georgia I saw a few years ago. It's a big thing. And I think they will get behind these things to kind of, look at the world. So they use it as a blind a little bit too. But I often in stick structures, when you get an area that will gift them, I'll leave something and come back, it's gone, but that I tend to think when they build an area of these, they
a little bit laggy there. Can you say that again?
I tend to believe that when they build or erect an area of these things, that they have others. Sasquatches will watch this area and stay present in this area over time. So we were talking, I think, a little off air about the northern Kettle Moraine area too. Before, but I want to touch on that a little. I had an area near Greenbush for your folks. I can find the Greenbush campground just across from there, and the trails going back into the Red Oak natural area. I had an area in there I researched for years, and I saw them literally build these things, put them all up one after another, because I was in there every week, and then take them all down at the end of the season. So it was by summertime, they were all built and erected in there, and by late in the year, they took them all down. That's fascinating because they're A, in one area, B, they weren't there, now they are, C, they got moved around a little bit over time. Maybe the juveniles build them as an exercise or something. And year end, and they took them all down. They're all, there's nothing natural that's going to isolate itself in one area and gradually erect these things and then take them down. So, and there's no other animal that can do it unless people do it. And there were no people off this trail doing this. It's just not. It's not a Boy Scout activity or something. And Boy Scouts sometimes love to build lean-tos in the woods and that sort of thing, but that's not what we're talking about. I always debunk that too.
Mm-hmm. I usually like to say if you can take a tarp and throw it over it and create like some sort of a, like a tent or, shelter area, it probably wasn't made by a Bigfoot. It was probably by like a bushcraft or something.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And hunters will build a blind sometimes, and they'll get in there. I found these things in the northern unit down. There's eskers and kettles and things. I found them above horse trails in the northern Kettle Moraine unit. I mean, way above, because I had some reports. People felt they were being watched, and I got in there, so I really researched topography. But above trails, where there's a viewing point, I think you brought that up. They ability so they could sit. And some areas I'd see them one next to another up on the top of a hill, just so they could watch people ride horses go by and be undetected. So structurally, I think they have meaning and purpose, symbology, signs. Not a permanent shelter, but maybe a place. Maybe they hunt in them. Maybe they build a blind, get in them, get out of the cold. Because they hunt turkeys. They're omnivores. They eat a variety of things. They can observe deer hunters. And then I had reports in the northern unit about them stealing deer out of the pickup trucks. The deer that have been shot, harvested, thrown in the back of a pickup truck where they go in to get the other 100. Bigfoot's coming out of the woods, grabbing the thing out of the truck and running off. So, I think they use them to stay stealth and watch.
In regards to the Kettle Moraines, I've gotten a lot of good leads and stuff on the horse trails specifically. Yep. Have you noticed that there's a difference between the random hiking trails, the bike trails, and the horse trails? Like which ones have the more results?
Yes, unquestionably. So there's two reasons for that. One is they're not traveled as much. Number two is they are wider and taller. So the clear out when you get in there and you travel is better. If it's good enough for somebody sitting on a horse, Bigfoot can run down them or travel them at night. So unquestionably, there's something to that. There are. If you look where the horse trails are, and there's one unit in northern unit, one area of the horse trails, and used to go in there, there's always flies around. There's a lot of flies driving me crazy. But there and up towards Glen Beulah, over 23, if you get across 20, I think it's 23 up there, you go across that Ridge Road up in that area. I had there's horse trails up in there, and I had a regular area. Went in there and hung apples out for them, every week, and I'd come back and I'd take them. Yes, to answer your question, yes, no question, and they also was a good place for them to observe. Funny quick story about the Ridge Road area. If you have any people in the area want to go check these out, I think it's fine. None of it's infringing on people's property, but I had a lot of interactions.
Property, yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of interactions with them in the northern unit, ongoing. I was in there almost every week for years. They'd know me. I'd come in and announce myself, and pow, I'd hear a knock. I'd come in and I'd be taking pictures of stick structures. Back in that, if you get in that Red Oaks area, that's a mile back, easy. There's some real good ones in there too that they built and took down. I even thought there were some mounds, maybe burial in there. But they'd be down in a swamp and they'd hear me come, and I'd do a knock and pow, right back at me, or I'd whoop. They'd answer right back. They got used to me being there, but I would leave apples out on a stump, that sort of thing. Funny story though, that Ridge Road area up there, I had an area with a stump just off the trail up on a hill, and I would hang apples. I'd get 4 or 5 apples and hang it up, and they'd tear out the bottom take the apples away. And I'd say, man, maybe it's a squirrel, maybe it's a raccoon. So I always try to debunk. So you get plastic sometimes in the supermarket that's very, very hard to tear. And I would put the apples in that. You almost can't. You have to use the scissors or something. Put it up there, they'd tear right through. You'd see almost like something tore right through it. One of the times I kept saying, well, how do I know it's you? I would talk to the woods. And one of the times I did, I left half a dozen apples. I came back. If you look on the apple, there's a little tiny sticker on the apples. Typically, they have a barcode, that sort of thing. I had a group of 6 of those things. Were all torn off the apples, and they were laid one on top of the other, and they were right at the bottom of the stump. Well, the apples have been torn out and gone, but the stickers were stuck one on top of the other and left there. And I thought to myself, there's no human's going to do anything like that, and it's off the trail. And it's remote and all that kind of thing. And I'm like, what in the heck? But it was almost like they said, okay, we'll prove it to you. You don't believe us? All right, we'll do something to let you know. I thought it was fascinating. But you can't have dialogue with these things and, coexist with them and on an ongoing basis too. But you always got to treat them with respect. Native Americans always say treat them with respect. And I am very much in that camp.
So one of the other things I was going to ask you about is, we were talking about the correlation between the horse trails and the sightings and stuff. Have you noticed anything else as far as correlation with horses and Bigfoot? We've heard like stories of them like braiding the manes and things like that. Do you think that might have something to do with it as well?
Yeah, I have read about that and heard some of that. I've not investigated that. I think I had one report. It was in Georgia that had some of that going on. They will come around where there are horses, and not afraid of it. I had an area that was a horse farm in northeast Georgia that we used to use as a base camp for expeditions. And they would come during it. We'd be back 3 a.m, and between 3 and 7 in the morning, they'd come into that horse camp, out of the woods. They weren't afraid of that. And bang on the side of my camper a couple times, that thing, bang, 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 as much as to say, we're over there. But I don't think they're afraid of horses. They will come in and around those things too. And it doesn't seem like horses are. I was once on a trail on the Northern Kettle early in the morning with somebody else on a horse trail. And we saw a rider with a horse, good 100+ yards away up a trail coming. That horse saw us and in an area we had some activity and just reared right up and pulled up as much as, thought maybe we were the Sasquatch coming or something. So I think horses are aware of them. There is some interaction going on there for sure. Sasquatch will use those trails. But as a symbiotic relationship, I don't know.
You've never had any kind of like more sightings near habituations as far as like with horses? Anything like that?
No, it's funny. I've had Bigfoots are great mimics. One of the habituation sites I deal with in Tennessee, they mimic. They come. So we have a number of recordings. We have mics, boom mics and things hanging outside in a bathroom or some property out in the woods, and they'll mimic. We've had to mimic horse noises, mimic donkeys. This is on acreage. It's out in the woods. There's no animals like that anywhere. And all of a sudden you get these recordings, this kind of thing. So they'll do things to amuse. And, they're fascinating because they will mimic because it's distractive. It gets humans away to look or freak out and look another way. But I've heard to mimic the horse.
Interesting. All right. Changing a little bit of topic here. I know you talked about some of your visual sightings and stuff. And one of them you said was like the spider crawl. And I'm interested if you can kind of describe a little bit more in detail as to what that looked like.
Yeah. So I've had a number of Class A sightings, one in Colorado. And each time I had a Class A, someone else saw it with me. 3 of us saw one in the mountains of Virginia, same time, huge, 8-9 foot tall. Saw one in Colorado, saw one out near Shawano, in Wisconsin, near the reservation out there, saw one crossing the road there. Last October, I saw one peeking around a tree, and habituation site I was on at night in Tennessee. So head peek around and the 2 red eyes looking right at me. So the one that crawled was in northern Georgia. And 4 of us on a trail rounding the side of a mountain, switchbacks. And we got to a place where we had activity in the ravine below us, and we heard it. I mean, we'd knock, it would knock, and it was down there. We passed this area. We thought it was down below in a ravine, and it made a whoop noise. We got up the trail a little ways, and we stopped. And one of the folks in the group got a cell phone signal all of a sudden, because a lot of times we're remote on these. And we turned around, 4 of us, 2 looking on 2. And I looked over the shoulder of the person I was with. She was looking at her cell phone, and I saw this thing come up out of the ravine, and it was like a big gray crawling mass. And it came up, hesitated a second, then went across the gravel trail and up an embankment on the other side. I saw it in the moonlight. It was gray. That's what I'm sure of. And I knew it was not, it was big and flat, but there was no. When you see an animal, even in the woods in the dark, you can see, the legs. It's none of that. This was ambulatory, almost like a crab crawling. It looked like you could see how it moved. So like the torso and the head were down kind of lower, but it was crawling across the trail, arm over arm like that, and went up the embankment on the other side. It's one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. I mean, when you think about it, I still think about it. You know, think about monsters. This was a monster-looking thing. I don't know what it was, but it was big, gray, hairy, and crawled like a tarantula.
So again, it's at night, probably hard to see, but you know, like military crawl, like the one in front of the other kind of movement, the hips, the undulation of the hips at all, or was it kind of straight across going?
It was kind of flat on the back, but the back was higher. But that's a good way to describe it. But you didn't see the parting of the sun, or the moon was bright, and had lit up the trail. And you could, if that was a coyote or so, you could see the legs move, and you'd see right through that. What you could see, you couldn't see that so much as you could see these appendages move, kind of, and the mass move. But it was humped on the back, kind of thing. But the head was like low to the ground, and it was crawling, and then went up this embankment. When it was going up the embankment, it was creepy to it, because it just went up that thing like it wasn't even there. I mean, I've seen black bear go up embankments with a pretty steep grade too in the Smoky Mountains. I've seen that a few times, and I mean, they'll go up. Deer will go up those too. This thing went up that embankment, like it was adhering to it. It was just weird, like a suction cup to it or something. It was weird.
So you didn't notice. You said the hind was higher up, but you didn't see any kind of like the undulation of movement. Was it pretty solid straight across, or did it undulate, I guess, as it was moving?
It seemed pretty steady across the back. So as it moved, so I didn't see that up and down motion so much. I was looking for that because I would have been able to see through legs. I didn't see that so much. What I was able to see was something moving on the sides, like you described, like that. I could see something reaching out and moving on the sides, kind of, but I could not see through. I could not see the moonlight through it on the lower. So, which is fascinating about these things too, because people will report seeing them when they're walking or running, and the top of the head doesn't move, yet the legs move fast, like they're skating across. So there's something about the way these things can move. They can keep themselves steady, maybe for looking, but the whole head, the head won't bob up and down when people see it. It's like it's stationary, and the top and the bottom is active. It's fascinating.
Like they're gliding, people have said.
Yeah. Roller skates.
Yeah, no, I'm really curious about that because we've gotten a piece of evidence on thermal, and I first thought it was like an otter because I had nothing for scale, but we went back and we put a person in the spot where this thing was, and whatever this creature is about 6 feet, about
no kidding
size, but it looks like it's army crawling with like you said, the one arm in front of the other. But this one, the hind end undulates with every time it brings the legs forward. It has that undulation movement, and there's not many animals that move like that. So I've always been curious as to that. As trying to get underneath our camera is what we kind of thought. So.
Yeah, and you're doing the right thing by trying to debunk it with other animals, and who knows with these things how they can move, but they're fast. I mean, crazy fast. The one I saw in Virginia came down a ravine and it stopped. A tree hopped from one side to the other, but it stopped for a minute. We knew it was there. When it shot across the ravine, oh my God, you could see those muscles flex, and it was huge. This thing had to be 8-9 feet tall, black, huge creature. I woke up next day saying, how can anything that big be that powerful? But I mean, you could see it move, and it was fast, but again, the gliding motion, very muscular gliding, but these things have abilities we don't have. If they wanted to be on us in the forest, I always tell hunters this, because hunters are, I've seen everything, and it doesn't, I never see one. Like they could be on you and you'd never even know it, that sort of
and
thing.
Quiet too.
Man, quiet. Yeah, I was in North Georgia on another thing up near Helena in the woods with a couple of guys years ago. We had parabolic mics. We're sitting above a canyon below, and we barely were perceiving something behind us. And after a period of time, we got up, and one of the guys was turned his thermal around behind us. This thing stood up and took off. We heard 6 distinct steps before it got out of the forested area into like a dove field. And it was so close it shocked me. I said, how did anything get that close to us and we didn't hear it? You know, it was right behind us. You know, just watching us. It's fascinating. I don't know how these things are quiet if they want to.
Interesting. We had one question. I kind of mentioned this myself when you were offline there for a second, but the Squatchin' Cowboy would like to know, why would a creature like Bigfoot that wants to remain hidden mark its territory by making a X? If it knows that Bigfoot was, or if I knew that Bigfoot was doing this in the first place, I would go there.
Yeah. Again, I don't think they're communicating for us. I think they're communicating for each other. If the X means something to each other, like I said, in Cherokee, it definitely means friend. I was on a trail with some folks years ago and we were saying the word knock, which is, we believe from 50 years of Bigfoot, a way of saying friend. And we were 100 feet below us in this trail, and the mountain laurel, this thing went across. We could kind of see. As we started back down the trail, there was a huge X made out of mountain laurel, old side bark, and the leaves stripped off, and was laying right inside, right in the trail, flat on the trail. We saw that thing. So it communicated back to us, and I was comfortable with that, that it did communicate. It got the message. It communicated with us. So overtly left an X to communicate with us. I'm not sure in what your question there from the Squatchin' Cowboy is that wants to remain hidden. I don't know that these things want to remain hidden or not. People see them. We're all amateur researchers out there. We run into them on, I don't know if they want to be hidden, or sometimes they really want to be avert. Other times they don't. They're observant. They're watching properties and people. They're fascinated with people. They mimic people. They're around properties. I think there's lots of them. I don't think this is we're chasing a solitary creature across Northern California. It's not any of that. I think they're in social groups. A very good friend of mine is Native American in Virginia, tells me from going back years and years and passed down information to the tribes that there are loads and think tribes of Bigfoots, families of Bigfoots. They're out across the U.S., North America, and tribes and groups. There's lots of them. So, it's got to be, the X might be a way to communicate back and forth between them. It's got some meaning to them. We tend to suppose our own values and say, oh, X is like, a pirate lore or something. It means bad, skull and crossbones. Forget it. I don't buy any of that.
Unbeknownst to us, there's buried treasure under each of them, and we just haven't dug it up yet. It's like, hey, I got all kinds of cool stuff here. Come look. Like, nah. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So you had mentioned something else that was very interesting, that a lot of these stick structures have been seemed to stripped of all the bark or the coverings and stuff. And in all the stuff that I've researched in Wisconsin and Upper Michigan and stuff around this area, I haven't found much of that until recently. A property very, very up in the north on the edge of the Wisconsin-Minnesota border. Wisconsin-Michigan border. That's the first property that I've actually seen the stripped stick structures.
Mm-hmm.
So in your research in Wisconsin and other places, have you noticed any kind of, like they do it in Wisconsin, but not in Tennessee, or, like anything like that? Is it like a local thing, or have you found it everywhere?
So, and again, you always want to debunk, like a crepe myrtle tree its bark will shed, and some birch and everything, but they don't use those materials. They use, when I do this, is typically good, good stock, but I can't explain them why they do it or don't. Quite often, they'll always strip off the side, in the members and an asterisk, and they'll strip off those twigs and things growing out the side of it. They will strip, even a sapling that's bent over, they'll strip off the side members of that quite often. The bark comes off a lot. They will tear the bark. I don't know why they do it in some, but not in others. Here's a good image. I always try to get somebody in it for scale. It's a buddy of mine that's a researcher up in Ohio. But there's symmetry to it. The bends on, and again, look for the end here to be stuck in the ground. But you'll see quite often, like with this one, everything's stripped off the sides. There are other trees around there, saplings around there that have side branches coming off the tree, and they pull those things right off.
So, hang on for a second. Are you just when you're saying they're stripped off? Are we just talking the other branches coming off of it, or are you talking the bark itself?
Always the branches are pulled off, almost always.
Yeah,
and then the bark,
yeah,
and then the bark quite often is taken off too. I have seen with the stationary ones, like I was talking about, the ones that are like markers out there sticking in between where a tree bifurcates, they will take it off. Here's another big X I have. That's in. This is actually the right one here. This is actually in the mountains of South Carolina. It's huge. And I have another picture of somebody standing up, but they stripped off all the side on that. Okay, so I can't figure out why on some they do it and not on others, but there's definitely something to that, why they will do it. Here's a number of them, a little of both, where you can see what I was talking about, that phenomena where they're putting them
like the walking sticks.
Yeah, like that. But you can see some of them in there, it's stripped off. You can see clearly, they've stripped those off the side pieces. Now, why in the heck would these? Some of these have 6, 8, and 10 of these all piled in there. That doesn't randomly happen with all those sticks being the same size, some with the bark ripped off, and they're just piled in there. And these are all off trail. They're not in a place where people would do this. There's no reason. People leave a walking stick at the trailhead, but not in a tree off all of a sudden you see a bunch of these there. That's got some kind of a marker meaning, but those things will be stripped off pretty much spark all the time.
Yeah, see, when you mention that, I do, when I talk to people about this as well, like anytime you find a structure out in the woods and they're branches, it's probably natural because like you said, the structures that we're talking about for Bigfoot related seem to be sticks, not branches. Yeah, and then that sounds stupid for people that don't understand, but it's a stick. No, it's a branch. Yeah, it's the same thing. No, it's not. But
right.
Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, that's really interesting because I guess I've never realized the difference between stripping of the branches and stripping of the bark. That maybe people are describing it different ways, but I've always taken it as the bark was missing, and that's how I was. My question was posed. I found all the stick structures I've talked about are sticks, right? But I don't find them stripped of the bark, is what my question was, except for this one property. But
yeah, no, the sticks are always ripped off the sides, the sapling, the twigs or branches off the sides. That's always taken off, but then quite often the bark is taken off too. So I've seen it both ways, and I can't necessarily explain that.
It's kind of similar to the stone stacking. Now, we went down to Kentucky and Tennessee, and some of the researchers down there said, well, this is really common out in the woods. You find big rock piles and stuff like that. And up here in Wisconsin, I have never seen anything like that out in the woods. I've never found, obviously like on the trails, you find people do it, but I've never found what I would consider Bigfoot structures made out of stones. But down Kentucky and Tennessee, I was shown quite a few of these, and I'm like, okay. When two people actually, we tried to lift and unstack one of these and we couldn't do it. So big piles of rocks out in the woods. So
yeah, and I'm always interested in expeditions. We have debriefs next day after being out doing night investigations. We talk about if they communicate, how they communicate. Kentucky, I've had a lot of rock clacking. So they'll take a couple of rocks and hit them together and back. I've experienced a lot of that. So that does vary a little too. I have an area north of Asheville, North Carolina, northwest of there near Marshall, that construction site, and they're in there, and they're moving big rocks around on the site, and almost, because the workers are coming in and say, hey, we didn't put that rock over there, and it's massive. And it's almost as much as to say, we're here, we're watching you, so guess what? We moved this, so you will know that we're here, and we're pretty big and pretty strong. So there's times where I think they kind of set the rules of the road up with us. We're going to interact with you and let you know we're here. And I think the rocks have something to do with that. Now, they will put rocks, I think I have one in the book here. They will put rocks inside a glyph sometimes too. So here is one. There's an F type that you do see out there quite often. Let's see if I get that correctly. So there's okay, there. So there's an F, and inside the mouth of the F, if you will, they'll put a rock. I've seen that many times. So, that just doesn't happen coincidentally either, too. So, they will use rocks to answer your question at times.
Very interesting. We are coming up on the end of the show here. If you guys have any questions for my guests, throw them in the comments, and we will try and squeeze them in here before we wrap things up. You've also talked about the sound, these wood knocks, and how a lot of us kind of consider maybe they're not actually wood knocks, that they're, either mouth vocals or clapping or some sort of other thing like that. And you mentioned that you use a pop gun and to do this, and I'm really curious, what is that? Well, I know what a pop gun is, but what do you use?
So I don't knock on trees anymore. I did years ago. I do not knock on trees anymore. Unless it's a perfect hardwood and it's not full of moisture, and you hit it precisely, you're not going to get a consistent good sound. I use, and that goes for Bigfoot too, because I'm of the page that they're not hitting the tree with a stick. I mean, they quite often are going to respond to you. And are they walking around with a baseball bat type? Is it ready to hit on a hardwood tree whenever they want to interact? No. So somehow they are making this noise, whether it's a mouth pop like a bear, or some way of doing it. They have a chamber that inflates or something, and they do. I don't know how they do it, but they're doing it themselves, and they're powerful, and it's loud. I've heard knocks sometimes when it was right on top of me, sound like a howitzer. I've heard them be very delicate too. Once I was on an expedition, they were imitating the way I was clicking on my phone, and tick tick tick, and all of a sudden I do it right back. So they can do it multiple ways. I like a pop gun because a pop gun, you can buy them in, cowboy stores, that kind of thing. And has just a cork in the end, and you pull it and pow. Well, you do that in the woods at night, carries a long way. You can put it in your backpack, doesn't weigh anything. A great way for amateur research, scout in the woods, do a random, knock. And I always knock. There's 2 in your group and you enter a trailhead at night, I do 2 knocks. There's 5 in your group, do 5 knocks. Just let them know, hey, we're here, there's 5 of us. I also use a jam block. So I used to be a drummer years ago. I play a lot of music, but jam block is something that mounts on a drum kit, and you hit it. There's different ones, different timbers, if you will, and you get them so they're really a dull sound or real high. And I will take that, and I have a little mini hammer I use, or even a small baseball bat, like a little Louisville Slugger thing, and I'll hit it, and that resonates and travels a long way. So anything you can do to communicate with them and try to get something back. Now, I don't think you should be running around the woods banging on it to raise hell. I think you want to do it. If they do it back at the same frequency, same number, same volume. Don't turn this into a competition. And quite often they will communicate and get it back. But those are the 2 things that I use typically when I'm out there, and I think they work really well.
Okay, so like the ones that you put the little cork in the end and shoot it off.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting.
Works. Try it. See if you can get one out there. Get a good plastic one, a good suction on it, like a wooden handle. Pow. It's great.
I was one of the other researchers on my team. We were out and we heard like wood knocks in the woods, and he mimicked it by clicking his tongue, and it is super loud, louder than I've ever heard anybody else click, because I can do it and it just sounds like and he popped it, and I went, hold on, and we waited and we got a reply back, and I'm like, oh man, it was loud.
Yeah.
I had a bonobo researcher on here a while ago, and she was talking about how the bonobos and chimpanzees like drum on the roots of trees, and it sounds just like these wood knocks. So, it's not outside the realm of possibility that they're just,
right.
They're so big, their hands are huge, and they can beat on things without it hurting as much as, if we go over and slap a tree, it's not the same, but
right.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very possible. I'm not sure how they do it, Barnaby. It could be in a number of different ways, but they definitely do it to communicate. And you say to yourself, why are they knocking to communicate? Why do they whoop to communicate? And it's different whistles. They'll whistle, I don't know, but they use different means, different ways to communicate. And I think they can communicate with each other without necessarily making a noise too. So
we do have one question here for you. Rick, as someone who also shares land with a resident clan of forest people, I deeply appreciate the way that you approach your relationship with them. Given the years of experience, what would you say are the most meaningful signs of trust or communication that you've received from them, and how did you respond to those moments?
Yeah, that's very good. And again, a trust and communication with them is a good way of doing it. I do follow, all the Native American, pretty much all the Native American tribes, peoples of North America have a name for this.
Oh no. He has frozen again. No, exactly. just at the end of the show and froze up again. Hopefully he comes back. Yeah, I think he. Yep. All right. Well, we'll try and get him back on here quick before we wrap things up. Lee says, "Great hearing from you. Great hearing your story last week as well." Here it comes.
Yeah,
There we
got
go.
out and got back. I don't know what that was. Well, it only happened twice to us in the last hour, so
That's true. That's true. We're doing
got to look
good.
at it positive. But no, to answer the question, I'm going to try to be brief with that. I think trust is a must with these things too, especially when you have them habituating. But I try to follow what they do. If they knock Lee, or there's an area in north central Tennessee that I've been in. The Finding Bigfoot show has been in there a number of times too. Standing Stone State Park area and Standing Stone Forest, and they'll communicate. And there's families in there, and they communicate. So if they knock lightly, I'll knock lightly back. I will mimic how they communicate. If they whistle, right, or I will whistle back. So I let them take the lead on it typically. Although I have a signature whistle I always use. When I get in the woods, I always go like that and hold it. Every time I'm in the woods. Years ago, I woke up after doing that all night in the woods and woke up miles away from where I was doing it at a horse camp. I got up in the morning, walked out, and went to the creek to relieve myself. 6:30 in the morning, and out of the woods, what did I hear? One of these things did it right back to me. So, and that was miles from where I was doing it. So that gets back to the question. That's trust and communication. If you show yourself overtly and you're not yelling at them, firing guns off, I wouldn't do any of that stuff to aggravate them. But I let them take the lead. If they do a loud knock, I'll do a loud knock. If they do two, I'll do two. If they do a loud howl, it's hard for us to really mimic that. I don't want people to run around in the woods making noises, you can provoke a little bit, but if you don't know what they're saying, then don't do it, I've heard them speak, I've heard the samurai chatter type thing. I don't go out in the woods and start going, blah, 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 making noises like that. So I think it would be offensive.
Do you see what's happening with my camera?
What's it doing?
Nothing is moving. My camera is literally sitting here. There's nothing moving here.
How is that happening?
I have no idea. My camera is right here sitting on top of my computer. The screen is not moving. It's literally the camera lens is turning in the camera, but there's no way it can.
You're getting some paranormal communication.
It's rotating my whole screen.
Well, I'd like to tell you it's unique, but I've actually had this kind of thing happen in Bigfoot discussions before.
I've had weird shows with paranormal before, but never on the Bigfoot topic. So now it's snapped back. I didn't touch anything.
That's bizarre. So Barnaby,
yeah.
we didn't dive deep into the paranormal thing today, but I believe these are physical creatures with a paranormal side. And what you just experienced, I've experienced in phone conversations and video on this topic a few times, especially if you get in a very meaningful discussion with respect, all of a sudden weird stuff happens. And I'm glad to see that happen and experience it. I don't know what it is.
I've done, look at this. This is 116 episodes of this show. And I do the paranormal spectrum, and I think I'm up to 60 episodes of that. And it has never
that's hilarious.
done this.
Well, welcome to the club.
I don't know.
That's great.
Well, I have no idea what to tell you there. I use a GoPro for my screen or my camera here, and I've never had this ever happen with a GoPro before.
Well, you know what? Any door you take into the paranormal realm, you get in there, it opens up other ones. They all seem to. It's just crazy. So it doesn't surprise me. Stuff like this happens. So maybe it's the paranormal side of Bigfoot just letting us all know, hey, we enjoy the conversation and the acknowledgement, and we're okay with it. But we're letting you know we're here. Like I was telling you about the big rocks. Yeah. Got to keep an open mind with this part of me. You never know what's going on out there.
Nope.
Longer you're into it, the weirder it gets.
I'm disappearing again. So
that's funny. I can see it.
I really appreciate your time. I'm sorry that we've had such mix-ups, and I have no idea what the heck is going on here.
Oh, it's hilarious.
So I will thank you for coming on.
I can see you down there. Let's do it again sometime. See if we get this to kick up.
Absolutely. Before we head out, I do have your information in the show notes. And for anybody that's interested in your book or any of the I Know Squatch stuff, do you have any events coming up, any speaking engagements or anything that you'd like to talk about? Or
real quick, two things. One, I'm a recording artist. I go by the name of Just Rick, so people can find me out there. Just Rick. I'm on Spotify and iTunes and any place you listen to music. And I did a song called Woodbooger Walk that's been picked up on TikTok and used tens of thousands of times and things. So people might get a kick out of it. It's kind of a blues romp, and it's about Bigfoot. It's got the lyrics in it, talk about Bigfoot and how people see it. So check out Woodbooger Walk by Just Rick. That's me. When you're out there, I'll be in Marion, North Carolina, and then out near Uwharrie, Denton in August. There's 2 festivals out there I'll be at, and I'll be at Westminster, South Carolina in October, and maybe up in Crypticon. We'll see. I'm working on that right now.
Very cool. I think you can still hear me, right?
I can hear you, but you froze up on me. There you go.
I was resetting my camera, but no, there we go.
All righty. That's craziness.
There we go. I reset the camera, so maybe it'll stay here for the end here, but awesome. Absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate you coming on, and I apologize for the mix-ups here at the end. But,
that's fine. I appreciate your audience, their questions. Appreciate you having me on the show. Lots of topics in this field of subject matter. Anytime you want to talk about it, I'm still out there researching all the time. So, let's do it again in the future. Pick another subject to talk about. I'd love to. And I love to reflect on places in Wisconsin that this goes on.
Absolutely. Oh, now you froze.
All righty.
All right, before we have any other technical difficulties, I'm going to say thanks again, and thanks for coming on, man. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, Brian. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys, that is our show for this week. I have never seen that. Has anybody ever seen that before? I don't even know how that's possible. Nothing was moving. It's just literally my lens was twisting, and I don't know. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for tuning in and hanging around for all of our technical issues on today's show. But that's the fun of doing live shows. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, and share all things here on the Untold Radio Network. Go check out I Know Squatch and all of Rick's other stuff as well. Check out his book at I Know Squatch on Etsy. The link's in the show notes if you want to get yourself a copy of the Stick Structure book. So until next time, guys, I'll see you in the edge.